expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the policies and position of this network.
Hello everyone, it's Thursday, November 26 in Manila. I'm Karen Davila giving you the head start for the day. On Hot Copy this morning, the House of Representatives and the Senate recently started hearing about the recent flooding in Metro Manila and nearby provinces. What can be done to avoid another calamity? We'll be speaking with climate change and environmental advocate, Antique Congresswoman Loren Legarda. First, the headlines. Today's big stories: COVID-19 cases worldwide, now more than 60 million. Back here at home, OCTA Research Group reports a slight increase in COVID-19 cases in some areas, including parts of Metro Manila. And the Health Department sets a price range for COVID-19 swab tests. On Hot Copy this morning, some Philippine senators believe the recent massive flooding in Marikina City may have been due to illegal logging activities in watersheds. More from Sherry Ann Torres.
It will take 10 years for Marikina City to recover from the devastation brought by Typhoon Ulysses. That's according to City Mayor Marcelino Teodoro, who says he is now going after a reclamation project done by the company of Marikina Congressman Bayani Fernando, which he claims may have caused the flooding in the area. Fernando was quick to defend himself. Teodoro had said the city will sue the operators of ANGAT Dam for supposedly failing to notify residents before it released water at the height of the storm. But the dam's operator, the National Power Corporation, says the water released from the dam goes straight to Bulacan province. Marikina River's water level rose to 21.8 meters at the height of Ulysses' onslaught in the capital region, higher than its level during Typhoon Ondoy in 2009.
Is Marikina and the Marikina River affected by any discharge of water from any dam?
Yung tubig na narinig sa ANGAT ay hindi po pupunta sa Marikina.
Ang ANGAT po ay hindi nakaka-apekto ng PASIG-MARIKINA, kundi yun yung WAWA Dam. Pero yung WAWA Dam, wala pong gate na binubuksan. Nag-i-spill.
For Senator Cynthia Villar, the overflow of ANGAT Dam alone could not have caused flooding in Marikina, pointing out that there are few to none river tributaries connecting the dam to the city. While Senator Risa Ontiveros blamed the flooding on illegal activities such as logging and land grabbing in the Marikina watershed. A representative from the Rizal Provincial Planning and Development Office echoed the senator's sentiments, saying that a huge volume of the floodwaters that inundated Marikina were from the Marikina watershed and mountain ranges in Sierra Madre and the province of Quezon. Billy Dumaliang, a trustee and advocacy officer at Masungi Geo Reserve, earlier said that it would be hard to reverse the damage made to the watershed due to illegal activities. Dumaliang described the Upper Marikina Water Basin to be in its last stages of so-called forest death, but illegal activities haven't stopped in the area despite its protected status. The Public Works Department, however, lined up its flood control projects aiding the PASIG-MARIKINA River Basin. Public Works Undersecretary Emil Sadain says they are only awaiting approval from the National Economic Development Authority, followed by budget support for the projects. Sherry Ann Torres, ABS-CBN News.
At the lower house, a probe was recently held on the massive flooding that took place in several areas in the country. House Deputy Speaker and Antique Representative Loren Legarda is calling for an efficient flood control management and a better ecological solid waste management to avoid similar disasters in the future. She joins us first on Hot Copy this morning. Good morning to you, Congresswoman Loren Legarda.
Good morning, Karen, and good morning to all your viewers, and congratulations on the work you're doing, especially going to the barangays in San Mateo, helping the NGOs and the United Nations Women's Group in disseminating much needed help for our women.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. I didn't expect that. But moving on to the bigger issue at hand, both the lower house and the Senate are conducting hearings on the massive flooding in several provinces in the Philippines and several cities. You have been a staunch advocate for the environment, a staunch advocate for climate change. Let's start first with something specific, the flooding in Cagayan. Is the discharge of water from Magat Dam a cause? Are dam protocols an issue in the flooding recently, Congresswoman?
I believe so. I believe, Karen, that all dams, including Magat Dam, should update their protocols. I am not saying that they did not update. That's why an inquiry is in order. If you will recall, Karen, way back in 2009, the same thing happened, this time not in Magat Dam, but in San Roque Dam in Pangasinan and ANGAT and Ipo Dam. And we conducted the same hearings on site in Marikina by the river, in Santa Cruz, Laguna, not because of dam, but because of rising flood waters from Laguna de Bay, and in San Roque Dam in Pangasinan, and in the Senate session hall at the time. Sabi nga nila, malakondoy ang ulan. However, if you will see, in terms of millimeters of rainfall of Ulysses, let me just read. PAG-ASA says that Typhoon Ulysses brought an average of 234 millimeters within 11 hours. And this is 63% more than the average in a month. But if you are to compare it in a 24-hour scenario with Ondoy, Ondoy was 455 millimeters for 24 hours. What am I trying to say? Ondoy was much higher, but the destruction in 2020 with Ulysses was much bigger.
Was much more, yeah.
So we can see that there should be a revisit of the dam protocols. What are the dam protocols? Simply put, ito po ang mga pamamaraan sa pagpalaya ng tubig. Ano ba ang serbisyo ng mga dam? Tatlo po: flood mitigation, hydroelectric, and irrigation for agriculture. If you will read the manual of the protocol of Magat Dam, in the year 2002, I believe, within the years of 2000, they already said that their flood mitigation role may not be utilized anymore because of some infrastructure problems. I would suggest that Professor Tabios, Engineer Tabios of the University of the Philippines, be interviewed, because he's a better position to explain that. When he said he's part of a task force, very quietly, because we should look at this not politically, but through the science. We should be based on empirical evidence, not on who is in charge. Is it LGU? Is it this governor or mayor? No. It is not just one government agency. It is not just one political position. This is a whole of government and whole of society approach. I will simplify what I'm saying. We should revisit the protocols because the preemptive release of water, that term is always used. Nagpalaya daw 3 araw bago yan. Pero alam natin, bago magpalaya ng tubig ang dam operator, ito ba ay nakitugma sa pag-asa? Sinukat ba ang pagbagsak ng ulan? At inapisuhan ba sa simpleng pamamaraan na maiintindihan ng mga local na pamahalaan na sapat ba ang panahon para ilikas ang mga tao sa Cagayan Valley? Alam natin na, if I may, way back in 2017, Dr. Rex Cruz, former Chancellor of UP Los Baños and IPCC with Vice President Al Gore, conducted a study on the Cagayan River Basin. This was a DENR study of the river basins of the country, including Cagayan River Basin with all its tributaries. At the time, 2017, they already recommended several recommendations for disaster risk reduction. My question is, this was a government-funded project in terms of scientific research with recommendations for infrastructure to reduce disaster risk. We should have heeded the call of science as early as then.
Yeah.
It was conducted by a group of scientists in all their major river basins. So let us heed the science and let us see how we can improve it for now and for the future.
Okay. Now, Congresswoman, one thing important that you said that I just caught, in 2002, it was already noted that Magat Dam may not be able to perform its function as a flood mitigating infrastructure, something like that. You had said that. Does that mean that coming from 2002, Magat Dam should have already been supported and complemented 2002 pa lang?
Let me clarify and let me read verbatim. The NIA, the National Irrigation Authority, of which Magat will emphasize that there is no provision for the storage of flood water in the Magat Reservoir. And it goes on. The manual states that water levels and conditions downstream of the dam are essentially the same for the stage of the flood as they would have been there had there been no dam at Magat. Further, while the top of the dam is at elevation, it's technical. Clearly, the manual is made to manage the flood in the dam, but does not consider preventive flooding downstream. I believe, in my opinion, I'm not an engineer, but from all my studies of
Yes,
this,
and as an environmentalist, please do, go.
It is blind to the existing conditions downstream and will release water to protect the dam, no matter what. Remember, if you are mandated or tasked, kung ang trabaho mo ay mga laga ng dam, yun ang aalagaan mo. At dapat lang naman, dahil sinasabi po nila na kung hindi naman nagpalaya, mas malaking sauna. Pero alam ko, kaya nga may tinatawag na early warning system. At yung ating mga early warning system ay dapat relatable, ibig sabihin, naiintindihan ng mga publiko na siyang dapat maapektuhan yan. Was this sufficient in communicating it to the governor, to the mayors, city and municipal, to the barangay captains, to the people downstream, in the cities, in Tuguegarao, in all the municipalities affected, not just in Cagayan, but also in Isabela? Was there sufficient time in relating, conveying this very important information? Also, back, Karen, in 2009, Pag-asa did not have two things. Wala pa yung Doppler radar na nagsusukat ng tubig ulan, at wala pa rin yung ating sinuportahan na Pag-asa Modernization Act. Kaya dapat ngayon ay mas maigting na ang ating paghahanda at dapat nag-improve na ng gusto ang ating pag-adapt sa sakuna gaya nito. Pero bakit malaundoy at mas malaki pa ang pinsala sa atin? Kaya, pardon me for my passion, but I just feel that so much needs to be done. And I'm not blaming anyone. That's why I think that a revisit of dam protocols and coordination and convergence among these government agencies with local governments and the people themselves must be stronger.
Okay, all right. I want to catch on to some points that you've said there. You read the mandate of Magat Dam, and that's quite interesting. The mandate itself, essentially, the priority is to take care of the dam, that it does not technically overflow, so it has to release water. So that's the primary mandate of the dam. It's not a flood mitigating infrastructure. Tama ito, Congresswoman? Tama po ba?
But if you will ask any engineer, tatlo po, as I said.
Yes, yes. But not Magat Dam. But not Magat Dam.
It should be.
It should be. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Because you cannot use a dam for irrigation at the risk of killing the people downstream when there are extreme weather events. You cannot use a dam for electricity, for hydro, at the risk and not caring for people downstream.
Okay.
Kaya tatlo sa akin kaalaman ang sabi, and we should not renege on the accountability of the dam operator to clearly understand and implement the preemptive release of water, the clear communication with local governments,
All right.
all publics who will be affected.
Okay. You've clarified that, and I just want to ask you this. Magat Dam is already 40 years old, and when I interviewed NIA, they did say that it needs to improve its holding capacity. And the watershed, the governor of Cagayan, blames the condition of the watershed around Magat Dam. Do you believe that this is a major factor in terms of the watershed, the reforestation issue that NIA themselves claim they have not reforested as much as the DENR and NIA should have?
You're correct, Karen, because as I said, it is not just one reason for the massive flooding in the north and even here in Metro Manila and in Central Luzon, including in Metro Manila in Marikina City, as well as provinces in the south. Yes, the Sierra Madres. Well, we know some areas, including in Palanan, Isabela, it is still forested, but much of the Sierra Madre, which stretches up north, up to the ranges in Marikina, have been logged legally in the past decades. And it does not take engineering sense to know that pagkalbo na po ang bundok ay wala na pong kakapitan ang tubig ulan dahil ang mga soil erosion will ensue, and so the rivers and the waters downstream will be silted. Kaya sinabi po nila ay konting ulan lang, umaapaw na po ang ilog because of soil erosion, which causes siltation. So deforestation, but I question deforestation. We've allocated, and I know that because I was chairman of the Committee on Finance, more than 50 billion pesos for the National Greening Program, and this includes our watershed areas.
So that's interesting, Congresswoman. You were there when 50 billion was allocated for that, and but NIA itself admits that it's not yet completely reforested. Can you give us an idea, number one, who's in charge of reforestation and how long does it actually take to reforest all of our denuded forests?
Oh, that's a long story. But first of all, the 50 billion or more, including the forthcoming year's budget of the National Greening Program, which started in 2012, does not cover only Cagayan and Isabela or the Sierra Madre. This is a national budget that is earmarked for the NGP, which is both terrestrial, ang lupa at bundok, and marine, kasama na ang mangroves at saka seagrass bed. Pero ang issue dito, Karen, ay hindi lang pagtatanim ng punong kahoy. Did we allow the rampant, unabated denudation of our forests, which has caused soil erosion and the siltation of the water systems downstream? That is one. Second, the dam protocol, we discussed that.
Yes.
And third, in the cities, bakit mabilis bumabaha hanggang dito sa atin? It is the responsibility of the Department of Public Works and Highways, of MMDA when it comes to Metro Manila, and the local government itself, and each household. So it's a collective effort to quickly implement the segregation of waste at source, recycling, and composting. Pag tignan po natin yung mga letrato, let's say, sa iba't ibang lugar, kasama na po ang Marikina, ay paghakutin natin yung clogged drains. Hindi pa maraming plastic. Kaya alaga po para maibsan ang baha na galing sa kabundukan, na galing sa climate change, sa sobrang lakas ng ulan, sa pagbabago ng klima, ay kung tayo ay handa at malinis ang ating mga kanal, mga ditches, mga drain. At pangatlo, ang mga hindi dapat nagpagtayuan ng mga gusali o struktura.
Yeah.
Yung mga daluyan ng tubig dati, kung ito'y na-reclaim, hindi massive land reclamation, kundi kung nalagyan na ng struktura na hindi naman dapat. That's why I say it is not just one reason for the flooding. It is multifarious reasons and the collective responsibility of each and every Filipino. This has happened in Magat, in Cagayan, Isabela. There are still flood waters even in southern Tagalog. And wala nang ulan. Bakit? Kasi mataas na rin ang tubig ng Laguna de Bay. Bakit? Kasi silted rin. So, maraming dahilan na dapat pagtulungan natin. And we have the laws. Karen, if you ask me, ano pa ba batas ang gagawin?
Wala
Karen,
na.
If oversight function of the laws, the strict and effective implementation of the laws, Karen, if you ask me, ano bang batas ang dapat gawin? Nandyan na po. Pero ang kailangan talaga ay pagbawalan ang anumang pagpuputol ng punong kahoy, lalo na po sa watershed. Sa halip ay magtanim ng mga species na talagang makakasagip ng tubig. Kahapon sa aming speech ni DSDD Sabeliano, binanggit niya ang bamboo. Napakahalaga. Dahil ang bamboo ay fast-growing species, ito pa'y magaling sa carbon sequestration at mahusay din to sumagip ng soil against soil erosion.
Okay, so let's start first with a few things, no? Just very quickly, just to be specific. When it comes to dam protocol, according to NIA, they are using the ANGAT dam protocol many years back, where they can only release water 2 to 3 days before a typhoon does landfall. People have asked, couldn't it have been released unti-unti 5 days before? And they said under the protocol, no. What do you think of that, Congresswoman?
Yes.
Let's start with that issue first.
That is the reason why we need to revisit the protocols. Because we ask them, kailan mo nyo huling in-update yung protocol nyo? Nung panahon na in-update nyo yung protocol nyo, ano ang bagsak ng tubig ulan? At nung panahon yung ba, ang kabundukan ay ganyang kakalbo? And meron ba kayong sapat na early warning? Anong klaseng early warning? Facebook? Kung walang kuryente. Meron bang sirena? Just last night, we had a webinar with the CVF, the Climate Vulnerable Forum, and the Speaker of the House of Bangladesh, Shabir Chowdhury, he is a prime example of a DRR expert. And we know that in Bangladesh, in recent typhoons in decades past, 1 million people died when there was no early warning system. But when they invested in DRR, hindi na namatay na ganun karami ang tao sa kanilang mga bagyo. May mga namatay, siguro yung mga hindi sumusunod, pero hindi na 1 milyong tao.
And so, have we invested, Congresswoman Loren, have we invested in DRR already? This 2021 budget, is this a budget that's well-funded for DRR, you think?
I'm glad you're asking me. When I say investment, Karen, it does not necessarily mean money or finance investment. It is an investment in knowledge, learnings, and time. Just like what I said in Bangladesh, all they did was to institute a buddy system of red flags that if an early warning system is there, or if a warning from the Weather Bureau, then they would inform the communities through red flags. There are many indigenous and low technology early warning systems along to the last mile. When I say to the last mile, hanggang sa pinakahuling bahay na nandiyan sa tabi ng ilog. Yes.
Okay. Another question is, there was, this was the Senate hearing on who informs NIA when to release the water. NIA said it's PAG-ASA. PAG-ASA answered and said, no, they don't need clearance from us when to release the water. So we have a problem right there. So if I were to ask you, Congresswoman, based on your experience, who or which agency makes the determination it's time to release the water? Who should do that? Should PAG-ASA be the one to clear it? I mean, clearly they'll forecast when the typhoon is coming, how much rainwater, you've said it, but they don't know just the operations of the dam in detail. Who should determine the release of the water, when, how much? Who should do that, Congresswoman?
Clearly, PAG-ASA knows the science. And let me just think about PAG-ASA. We have the very good dedicated scientists there, but they must communicate in relatable, understandable language in a timely manner.
But they do in terms of forecasting. But it's
Yes.
about the order to release the water. So there was
Yes.
a debate recently on who's in charge of telling you when to release. PAG-ASA said, no, they don't need clearance from us. NIA said, no, there's a memo here that says it should be PAG-ASA. So, Congresswoman, based on your experience, sino ba dapat?
Noong 2009, and we are conducting the hearings now 11 years later, it should be contained in the dam protocol kung sino man ang in charge ng operator. But you cannot do this in isolation. As I said, the science from PAG-ASA, the protocols which need to be updated, and the environment at the time. Ano ba ang lagay ng lupa sa kabundukan? Ano na ba ang lagay ng bayan sa ilalim? Sila ba sa konting ulan ay baha na dahil punong-puno ang mga kanal nila? Dumami ba ang mga bahay dyan na nakapatong sa mga estero at kanal? Are they in harm's way? So all of this need to be taken into consideration. And I cannot answer that definitively and say, no, it is one person, it is engineer in NIA. Until I see and I am updated with their updated dam protocol. Let me just also state, when you mentioned earlier about the forest, according to Dr. Rex Cruz, and allow me to just read, the River Basin is already the most covered with forest compared to other basins. However, it is not evenly covered. Its Magat sub-basin in Isabela only has 15% forest cover, while the Kaseknan watershed has 11% forest cover. So also, let me state, in the operation, maintenance, and safety manual for Magat Dam issued in October yet of 2007 by the NIA, it emphasized, as I said, the no provision for the storage of water. And so, as you say, the passing on of accountability or responsibility between PAG-ASA and NIA must be ascertained. When it concerns lives and livelihood, we cannot have two agencies pinpointing and not knowing who is actually responsible. Actually, everyone is responsible. But just like in a battle, may general. At sino yung general na nag-i-input ng kaalaman base sa siyensya? At yun ang magbibigay ng desisyon kung magpapalaya ba ng tubig at ayon sa pag-abiso sa mga komunidad na siyang maaapektuhan. So this is 2009 all over again.
Another question, Congresswoman. The NIA said in the hearing that they would need additional budget to maintain Magat Dam back to its optimal state. He said only 5 to 10 million pesos is allocated for this. And he said it's not enough because the dam needs silting and dredging. Is the budget also for the maintenance of the dam an issue through the years?
I believe so. I know, that's what I said earlier, that there were infrastructure concerns of Magat way back in the year onward, 2000 onwards, where they said that they may not have the capacity. I hope I'm not miscommunicating what they said.
Yes, but that's what they said. Yeah, go on.
That they may not have the capacity except to be a dam reserve the water there as a reservoir. So yes, there are infrastructure concerns, and I think all dams' structural integrity must be upheld. Yan po ay isang prioridad, lalong-lalo na pag ang downstream niya ay populated communities. We cannot afford to see this happening time and time again. This is not new. Alam natin, we have more than 21 typhoons which become more intense and more frequent. We know that the dams have been there. As I said, in 2017, I asked Dr. Rex, who's gave a very good presentation. This was funded by the DNR. So action was done. I, as a lawmaker, as senator then, I would have supported the study, but I believe this did not reach the decision makers such that the needs of infrastructure development or rehabilitation were.
Very quickly, InfraWatch describes the flooding in Cagayan and Isabela as the exact words, a criminal oversight. Actually, they called it an unacceptable criminal oversight. Governor Mamba has, in an interview with Headstart, says there is still clamor to file charges against NIA just to teach them a lesson. Is this a criminal oversight to you, Congresswoman?
I would like to proceed with the inquiry, Karen, as we did in 2009. I would like to see dam protocols updated based on science. I would like to see a stop to any form of
illegal logging,
any form of logging in watershed areas.
Yes.
I would like to see communities saved, especially those at risk. I would like to see implementation of RA 9003. I would like to see early warning systems to the last mile, no matter how low tech, and using indigenous natural way. Criminal liability will come after such investigation is done. Ayoko po maging knee-jerk. Sa panahon po na ngayon ay hindi pa umaahon sa kahirapan ng tao, ayoko po magsalita kung sino ang dapat husgahan. Dahil sa tingin ko po ay kaya natin ito. Let us just base our decisions on science and follow it. Alam natin, pero minsan, hindi, madalas, hindi sinusunod.
All right. Okay, hold that thought, Congresswoman. When we return, we'll be asking House Deputy Speaker and Global Champion on Resilience, Loren Legarda, several other issues. Do we need new departments, for example, Department of Water, Department of Disaster Resilience, and what will it mean if we declare a climate change emergency? What does that actually mean for the Philippines? Headstart will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Headstart. A dozen incumbent Philippine lawmakers are implicated in allegedly corrupt activities in the Public Works Department. The Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission says the lawmakers allegedly received commissions from the government's public works projects. The agency, however, still refuses to release the list of names. That's the same list President Duterte mentioned but refused to read out during his Monday night address. President Duterte wants the list submitted to the Office of the Ombudsman, citing the separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. The Justice Department maintains its investigation will cover everyone, regardless of the government branch. But Secretary Menardo Guevara clarifies his agency will endorse the complaint to the Ombudsman should they find lawmakers involved. All right, now I want to connect this issue with illegal logging. House Deputy Speaker Loren Legarda is still with us. Congresswoman Loren, illegal logging, the President has pointed it out many times, our denuded forest. He wants both illegal mining and illegal logging investigated. And yet we know that local officials either allow illegal logging or are illegal loggers themselves. You already said it, there are already laws. Lahat ng batas nandyan na. And yet, it's often blamed on small farmers, small individuals who need to cut a tree. I mean, I'm just trying to say, what is the accountability of LGUs when it comes, frankly, to illegal logging?
Karen, ang pagbabantay ng gubat ay nakasalalay din sa mga forest guards na dapat hinahire ng DNR. Pero alam natin that the hectares of forest that need to be protected are not safely guarded by these forest guards because they're not existent, or if they are, they cover such a huge area and may not have the capacity to secure the safety of our forests. So it's a real challenge, but we know that there has been an executive order from long ago, many years ago, that any form of logging is not allowed, because as we know, the number of our primary forests has gone down, and we have less than 1 million hectares of primary forest in our land area of 30 million hectares in the whole archipelago. In fact, it has gone below the 1 million hectares of primary forests, and this was many years ago yet during the Senate hearings I conducted. But again, we will not blame that alone. As Dr. Rex Cruz said, the Cagayan Basin already has the most covered watershed. So why is it that even with a relatively well-covered watershed, experience one of the worst flooding?
Yes.
Because it is all of this. And that is the reason why we are calling for a climate emergency. Ano bang ibig sabihin nito?
Yeah.
Actually, I filed this resolution way back in February, pre-COVID. Nagsimula pa lang ang COVID, wala pang Ulysses, Rolly, Pinta. I filed climate emergency and delivered the privilege speech. Of course, at the time when I spoke, and the many years past, decades that I've spoke in both in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, many were interested, but perhaps the sense of urgency and the importance placed on it may not be the same as other issues that are addressed. And so what does it exactly mean? It means that in our national government and local development planning, we should actually mainstream the extreme weather events and climate change adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk reduction. What do all these buzzwords mean? Disaster risk reduction simply means pag tayo ay handa sa mga early warning system at iba't ibang mga bagay ay we will reduce the risk. Adaptation, may kanal dapat na malinis to declog it. Walang pagpuputol ng punong kahoy at walang pagmimina o quarrying dyan. Naghiwalay ng basura sa nabubulok at hindi
But I wanted to ask you that's so idealistic. That one you said, walang quarrying. That was the same problem. You remember, Congresswoman, in Albay, when the president temporarily suspended quarrying because some local officials said the aggregates technically were on the river, and some said it can't be, they wouldn't put it there. But then you also need the aggregates coming from the Bicol region for build. So what's the balance in this situation?
I'm glad you mentioned. Let me clarify. When we say it cannot be totally no quarrying because we have construction needs.
Yeah.
So this must be, again, based on science. Hanggang ano ba ang ipe-permit natin? But they said, no quarrying sa watershed. Di ba? Watershed. Kasi kung tayo magpuputol ng puno at maghukay ng hukay sa watershed, wala nang tigil ang ating pagbabaha. So I said, in watershed areas, again, it is up to the science to decide which areas will be allowed to be quarried, to be mined, to be deforested, pero wala na ngang natitira. Less than 1 million hectares na lang ang primary forest sa ating bansa. Naman.
Okay, so I'm curious, Congresswoman, to prevent this, the President has ordered Secretary Sematu to be the head of the task force. Should they first identify the watersheds that need to be saved? Like,
Karen,
in detail?
There's no need to identify them because they're
All of them need it.
No, watersheds are known to all of us and to the DNR. Number two, protected areas have been legislated.
Yes.
The EPAS law of 100
Yes.
when I was National Integrated Protected Areas.
Yeah.
Number
But
three,
ang tanong ko, Congresswoman, kasi are some in worse conditions than others?
yes. Ako, sa tingin ko, again, I may sound too idealistic. Pag watershed, pag protected area, talagang protektahan. In fact, there are those not yet legislated, pero kailangan po rin protektahan at saka merong mga magagaling na local governments, dinedeclare nilang marine protected area, landscape protected area sa local legislation nila. Pinoprotect nila kasi alam nila, buhay nila yon at kabuhayan nila. So when we say, this is not idealistic, if I may say that, because this entails our food, it entails our livelihood, it entails our survival. If I may, just 3 points on the drivers of climate change. Ecosystems decline, rural vulnerable livelihood, and weak governance. Yan tatlong yan. Pag yan ay hindi sundin or pag yan ay mangyari, yan ay nagdudulot ng kamatayan at yung sakuna na nangyari sa atin.
Okay, very quickly, do we need a Department of Disaster Resilience?
I was one of the authors and it has been passed on third reading in the House of Representatives. I believe that the bill is pending in the Senate. Let me just state, while I am one of the authors of this very important department, because as the global champion of resilience since 2007, I've been advocating for DRRCCAM that should be mainstreamed in all local development planning and even in the national government. Let us not mistake it to mean that only one department will take care of DRRCCAM. In fact, it should be each and every department because we cannot give false hopes to our people. If we enact a law and that law will just be ink on paper, I do not want false hope. We need to fund it, populate it with the brightest, brilliant minds and scientists with willpower to get the job done.
Okay, so Congresswoman, why is that department necessary? I've interviewed some senators and I even asked, I think, VP Lenny one time, and they said that there's a danger of just adding more bureaucracy to the government when there's the NDRRMC, for example. What difference would that department make, and will the NDRRMC be in the department? How are you envisioning this? Because clearly you're the first one who's openly said we need it. Some have said it could be an addition to the bureaucracy.
That's why I clarified. While I am one of the authors of the bill, I would not want to raise false hopes of our people. If it is not funded, if it is not populated by those most knowledgeable and who have the willpower, it will just be ink on paper. And so my answer to your question is whether you are an NDRIMC council, and I was also one of the authors of that law 10 years ago, which was sponsored by Senator Biazon then, or if it's a new department, hindi yan sa form, hindi yan sa struktura, nasa mga nagpapatakbo yan. Of course, nandyan ang mandato. Of course, nandyan ang pondo. The way it is now, the NDRIM has been funded. In fact, even every department that is on the front line has a QRF based on our law. The QRF is the Quick Response Fund. the Department of Agriculture, and during my time, even departments like D&D asked for their own QRF, which is replenishable from the NDREAM funds, which is lodged under the office of the president.
So do you believe a Department of Disaster Resilience, given the right people, if you put the scientists there, you still believe that it would make a difference?
What can I answer you? I am one of the authors of the but I have a big but in capital funds.
Okay.
If it is not funded, because
you said that.
Sino ang mag-dredge ng mga ilog? Yung Department of Disaster Resilience ay hihingi pa ng tulong
sa DPWH.
Ay wala siyang saysay.
Okay.
Siya ay walang kapasidad para sa siyensya, gaya ng PAG-ASA, pati na rin ang VOWS, pati na rin ang ibang ahensya ng gobyerno, at hihingi pa ng impormasyon doon, magiging wala siyang saysay.
Okay.
Pag siya ay hindi empowered para may oversight sa lahat ng water basins, gaya ng sa Cagayan at Magat Basin na ginawang pag-aaral way back in 2017 under DNR. Ano ang relationship ng disaster resilience na ahensyang ito sa DNR? Magiging maliit lang siya na ahensya na magandang intensyon, pero walang magagawa dahil nakatali ang kamay dahil ang malaking ahensya ay may kanya-kanya.
Alright.
And so,
very quickly,
I want to make sure that the fine print clears its mandate.
Yes, you've made that clear. Is a Department of Water important at this point? Governor Rod Albano of Isabela said there's so many agencies handling water. A Department of Water is vital. Do you agree with him?
Again, Karen, how can I disagree with you when I was one of the authors
of Department of Water?
Way back in 2007. There were many other senators. I think even the late Senator Edgardo Angara, even Sonny Angara now. I mean, there are, I think, 6 or 8 senators who have authored, and so many Congress representatives who have authored that. How can I say I am against it? Historical records would show that I filed it. However, again, because all these water agencies, in 2009, I conducted a hearing of all water agencies. Meron sa ilalim ng DENR, NWRB, meron ditong sa ilalim ng DPWH, meron dito, meron dyan. All of these water agencies. And then we don't have water during summer. Or then we have too much water during the rainy months. We are not making use of all these water agencies. For example, just give me please 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Long before I became senator, when you were still a child, there is this little known law called the Rainwater Collection Act. Hindi ako ang author po nito, pero napakahusay na bawat isang barangay ay may rainwater harvester para sagipin ang tubig ulan. Does it not make common sense? Sayang po ang tubig ulan pag wala tayong water cistern para yung mga alulod ng bahay ay gamitin ang tubig na ito pag wala po tayong tubig. Alam mo, Karen, hindi po ako engineer, pero sa aking limitadong karanasan, ito'y ginagawa ko sa aking sariling pamumuhay.
Okay. Wait, Congresswoman, we don't have enough time, so I need to get to the point. Yes, you were the author, but I've met also senators that have changed their mind through the years. So is it important, should it be certified as urgent, to already pass the Department of Water and Department of Disaster Resilience? Because
Karen,
it's been so many years, and yet, clearly, it has not flown.
Karen,
is it time already?
During this COVID-19 pandemic, all our resources must be focused towards a sustainable recovery, both in economic sense and in livelihood and in the health of our people. That is primordial. And so I will say that adding a new bureaucracy, in fact, I even authored another topic, a Department of Culture, but I am willing to set it aside for now, because COVID-19 has slowed down and changed everything. It does not mean that these departments are not relevant. Yes, they are. if we have the resources, if we have the personnel, if we can, if the mandate will be clear to improve our lives. In the meantime, we must mainstream climate change adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk reduction.
Yeah.
How many decades do I have to say this? How many more laws do I need to enact? How much budgets do we need to put in agencies that deal with extreme weather events to save lives and livelihood? Pardon me for my passion, Karen.
Yeah.
I just need to reiterate and emphasize this point because too many lives have been lost and we cannot allow it to happen again.
All right. Well, we appreciate your passion for the environment and spreading the word about climate change. On that note, I apologize. I don't have enough time already, but thank you so much, Congresswoman Loren Legarda, for joining us this morning amid the hearings at the lower house and also we're seeing at the Senate also. So that's Head Start today, Congresswoman Loren. Thank you so much for joining. Stay strong and you stay safe.
I apologize for my passion sometimes, but thank you so much, Karen, for your interest in the work we're doing. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm Karen Davila, everyone. Thank you for watching. Stay informed. Stay with ANC. Replay of this interview is at 10:30 this morning.